Alex Habersham, publisher of the Macon, Middle Georgia Black Pages. I'm happy to inform the community, particularly business owners, that we're working on a new edition of the Macon, Middle Georgia Black Pages and Resource Guide.
Coming soon.
There's an old expression that I've heard quite a few times that says, if you don't know where you come from, you can't have any kind of good idea where you're going. And what that kind of applies to is history. You know what happened in the past, knowing who your ancestors are and who your relatives are, knowing what kind of occurrences contributed to your success and your failure. But for some reason, there seems to be a real vacuum as it relates to understanding and recognizing the importance and the relevance of history, for all of us, for all communities, but particularly the African American community. And there's a young man who used to be a dentist, and he still knows how to do dentistry because it's not anything that you forget. In the person of Dr. Thomas Duval, who, because of certain experiences, has become real involved, deeply involved in trying to address the problem of the influence of the lack of knowledge of our history on our community. And he has adopted this endeavor, and he's doing it, with full speed. So I thought it would not be robbery to give him an opportunity to kind of express, something not only about himself, but most importantly, about the relevance, the importance, the advantages of us being familiar with our history. So I'm happy to have with me today Dr. Thomas Duval. How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing really good for an old man. I'm doing good.
Yes, sir. Well, you're a good-looking old man. Let me say that. So just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, and then you can move right into, your initiative, your projects, and your reasoning for being so intricately involved in, trying to impart the importance of history on our community.
Well, my family got to Macon in the 1870s, and my great-grandfather started an upholstery company in 1883. And it lasted until about 2001, 2002. It was perhaps the oldest African-American business in Georgia at one time. My background is I'm a retired public health dentist. I ran the state public health programs for Georgia, and I retired after about 20, 26, 27 years in public health. I also spent part of my career really in corrections. And while there, I began to ask the question, why do we have so many young African-American men winding up in prison? And why do they keep coming back? The recidivism rate is extremely high. And after studying this problem and reading about it, I finally came to the conclusion that they don't know who they are. And they really think they're that gang tattoo, and that's their total identity. And so I began to ask myself, well, who has really taught them who they are? Because all over the United States, our local and state African-American history is basically not in public schools. Now, here's the irony of that. When you think about it, we've spent billions of dollars with these flat screens and these projector screens in public schools all over the United States. But essentially, there is no state and local African American content, historic content to teach our African American kids. And really, all the kids need to know our history because African American history is simply the left out part of American history. Now, to be quite honest, I didn't enjoy history in college because to me, it was a required course, and I basically got me index cards and memorized names and locations. But after I retired, I began to research my family history. And I'll tell everybody, I'm a lay historian, but I'm like most Southerners, we love our red clay dirt. And I love my community and my local history. And researching my family history, I started looking at Pleasant Hill. Then I began to branch out, and I found that it extended, well beyond Pleasant Hill and really all over Middle Georgia. And so that is really what stirred me on to really discover or rediscover just how great our local African American history is. Because Macon, Middle Georgia has a glorious history, but the sad thing is most people know little, if anything, about it. The other thing I truly believe is that we have the solution to virtually everything wrong in the African American community. And we are on the precipice of an economic boom in Macon. If we can accomplish one major thing, and that is to stop the school to prison pipeline and the associated community violence that we're experiencing. What we have got to do is to motivate our children to want to learn, but more importantly, to motivate them to want to read. And this is my major point. Reading at grade level can fix virtually everything wrong in the African American community. And think about it. In public health, I learned that you have to go upstream to solve a problem. And when you look at our situation, we know that adult inmates in prison do not read at 12th grade level. We know that the vast majority of kids at the YDC do not read at grade level. We know that most of the bullies in the school system do not read at grade level. And I'm talking about the ones that many of the teachers are afraid of. We know that the kids that are out here doing all this violence and shootings and all these things, they do not read at grade level. We know that if you can read at grade level, you are employable. If you're literate and you have a good work ethic, that's the kind of person the business community wants to employ. You're trainable. So the attribute that will solve virtually everything is reading at grade level. Now, here is the problem. We've got to find engaging ways to motivate our kids to want to read and to use engaging activities to accomplish this. Because we know this, and this is a joke, but it's the truth. If you want to keep something a secret in the African American community, you put it in a book. So we got to have other ways to teach our kids the reading skill sets other than putting them or having them use books to do that. And folks say, well, wait a minute now, how can you do that? One of the activities that I did was to set up a green screen. And what I would do is I would tell kids, I'm going to teach you how to make a rap video. We're going to make a rap video about William Saunders Scarborough. They say, who is that? I say, he is from East Macon. He was born a slave. He went from being a slave to president of Wilberforce College. He is the first Black man to actually write a Greek textbook. And his achievements are astounding for his era. We're going to do a hip hop rap video about him. Now, in that process of that activity, I had these kids, and some of them were juniors and seniors. We were dealing with milestone prep vocabulary. You know, we went all the way back at times. We were dealing with phonics, but we never called anybody out for any skill set that they did not have. That's an example of an activity that is engaging, that is fun-filled, that will get these kids involved with reading and understanding. You can also simultaneously teach STEAM things such as computer science. You can teach binary. You can teach video editing. There's a whole lot of activities that can go into that process while you're simultaneously teaching them what they need to pass and to perform on their milestone prep or milestone exam test. And this is milestone prep. Because the bottom line is, if I tell children, I say, hey, we're going to have a milestone exam prep session. Come on and sign up. Nobody's going to sign up for that for the most part. The ones that will sign up for that would be what W.E.B. Du Bois called the talented 10th. The talented 10th, as he described, the 10% are going to make it no matter what. What we need to concentrate on, and what we need to concentrate on all over the United States, is this other 90%. That's what we need to do. And what we really need to do with our philanthropy is to simply say this: whatever your activity is for the enrichment of these kids, I want you to wrap it around milestone skill set activities. So if you're taking them to the zoo or whatever, teach them the stuff they need to read at grade level and to perform on the milestone. That's what we need to do, because it's not enough for the kids to have fun. I'm not against fun now, don't get me wrong. But what these kids need to do is to read at grade level. Now, if you can read at graduate reading at grade level, you think about it. You talk about blight, you read at grade level, you can get a middle-class job. You can pass that test that's given at that tire manufacturing plant. You can pass that test that they give at all of these companies and stuff. Because what's truly happening with our kids is that when they don't graduate reading at grade level, mama says, hey, you got to get a job or you got to go to school. So they go out to the technical school, they take a test, they don't pass it. So what happens? They say, well, you come back in 6 months or so after this remediation, and you pass the test and you can get in the program that you want to get into. Well, that's where the history and culture comes in. You got to have these kids know who they are. You got to touch them here so you can touch them here. They got to have that self-esteem. Really, what you're really trying to do is you trying to get them to want to have a real purpose in life. So if you do that, and if they're a little bit behind, then when that opportunity comes along, then they'll have what Dr. Angela Duckworth called the grit to go in and put in the time to do that remediation so that they can perform and do well at a technical school or any school. But that's where the history and culture really comes in. It's to develop that positive self-esteem and that grit. And the most important thing that these kids need to learn is the theme of what my projects are, and the theme of the history is simply overcoming adversity. That is what we really need to impart to our kids in terms of how our iconic figures overcame the adversity of their era. So that is the essence of the background thesis idea of what I've been doing, but implementing it and getting the opportunity to do it has been a challenge, because there's so many other competing things and competing programs that we have that really are fun activities, but they're not really addressing that core. And that core that's going to fix our community is reading at grade level. I think, Mr. Haverton, I think you're muted.
I am.
Yeah.
So what do you need? What do you need if you could wave a magic wand and get the resources? You got the plan, you got it laid out, you've got the grid, you know. I mean, so what is the stumbling block or the hurdle? Let me tell you something. It is so convincing, so true, so documentable, and so apparent that you're on the right road to addressing a huge problem in our community. So is it money? Is it acceptance? Is it political influence? Is it governmental influence? Is it the school system? I mean, what is it that you need in order to be able to at least get this project at the piloting stage?
Well, it's really a little of everything you described. I'm not one of these people that thinks that you just throw money and it's gonna fix everything, because it's not. Because quite frankly, we have in this Middle Georgia community spent a lot of money on a whole lot of programs and so forth. And certainly we can't say that we have a deficit, you know, of a lot of programs, nor do we have a deficit, for example, of churches and so forth. But they have to be fixated, I believe, wrap everything that you're basically doing around those reading skill set activities. Now, my coloring book, for example, I have some examples of milestone prep in this. And one of the things that I was able to do even this summer was to take, for example, I have Ivy Bell McKay in this book. Well, every year, as far as I know, they've been giving out sight words. You know, these and sight words, I think that approach has some advantages and disadvantages, but I really think we need to focus more on phonics for many of our kids and probably most of the boys, They need phonics. But here's my point. You're going to have sight word activities. Well, what we did was we designed, we took the sight words and we said, okay, we want you to take these sight words and we want you, well, first of all, we want you to color the picture of Isabel McKay. We had the kids do a skit about her. We video recorded it and so forth. And then I said, now take those sight words, and we gave examples of using those sight words to tell the story of Ozzie Bell McKay. So think about it. Simultaneously, you're teaching them their history and culture, but simultaneously, they're getting the sight words that they need to be able to pass their milestone skill set exam. That's what we need to be doing, are more activities that integrate those things. So again, you're touching them here, so you can touch them here. And that's what we need. In terms of what I need, really, I'd love to get this program going to actually test the results of having a group of kids do this project and then compare them with a group of kids that didn't do the project and see if it works. We have a wonderful program in Macon, Georgia called Leader in Me. It's a great behavioral change program, and it's doing some good things. But there's an eighth habit that we need to integrate, you know, our history with, and that's find your own, or find your voice, find your own voice. And our voice is our Macon and Middle Georgia African American history and culture. That's the voice that needs to be amplified for our kids to do well. So what do I need? Well, possibly some money, but more importantly than that is the opportunity to really design a project to show that this makes a difference, and then to integrate it into the school system so that we can really get a culture of academic achievement. See, really what we want in our schools is what this history and culture can deliver. We want our kids to respect schools as hallowed grounds. I didn't say holy, I say hallowed grounds. Because these kids have to know all the trials and tribulations our ancestors went through to provide them with the opportunity for a free public school education. When the American Missionary Association sent those missionaries south, you know, and these mostly female teachers came south, they were really amazed at the thirst of education for these former adult slaves and children. I mean, you had adults sitting in first grade along with children in the basements of churches. And they were amazed, for the thirst of education. And Macon was a seedbed for education, not just for Macon, not just for Bibb County and Georgia. It was a seedbed for education for the whole United States. And most of our educated elite in Macon, Middle Georgia don't realize that. That Lewis High Ballard Normal School that was located down where the emergency room is today, there weren't that many places in the United States during that era that had teachers with master's degrees and even PhDs teaching Black children, and teaching Black children geometry and Latin, and simultaneously understanding that these boys were right brain learners, which means if you're gonna teach boys, they have to touch it, feel it, and they have to put it together and all of that kind of stuff. Because if you look at the pictures on the books and so forth, you'll see, and I have it here somewhere if I can find it, you'll see that if you look at some of the pictures in this book right here, April from and True by Titus Brown, you'll see that the boys were in shop with their little bow ties on and their little ties and stuff. So those missionaries, they actually had it right then. That's right brain learning. So you want to talk about geometry, then you let the boys make the triangle or rectangle. You see what I'm saying? They had it right back in those days. And like I say, we were a seedbed for education throughout the whole United States. And we have lost that history. But more importantly than that, we have lost the idea that schools are hallowed grounds. So when a kid says, "My mama don't make me do it like that at home," you're not at home. You're on hallowed grounds at this school. We will not tolerate that kind of behavior because it's an insult to your ancestors. That's what we need to be teaching.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing, and I'm in full agreement with you. And what we need to do is we need to try to set up a mechanism, a plan, a program to make sure that you've got this stuff encapsulated to the point where it's understandable and presentable to entities and individuals and philanthropic organizations who will be interested. So my suggestion to you, and I will assist you, is we need to get a website. A website needs to be developed so any person interested, any church interested, any organization interested, any school system that's interested can go to that website and get a feel and get the requirements and the menu for what it takes to get it done. So we're going to see to that. If in fact, and then what we'll have to do is publicize when this site is ready, because I'm sure that it's a lot of people who are very interested in that, and I will be in touch with you about trying to get that process done and even getting some funding for it to at least do the website or what have you. But I want to thank you, man. I mean, it shows all through, all over you and all around you, how serious you are about this project, how much research you have done. And I think that, with the right kind of plan, it can come to fruition, and you certainly have my support. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham, having interviewed Dr. Thomas Duval, who's a historian extraordinaire. Not only is he a historian, but he's also a history curriculum director because he has put together a plan that will help to educate, motivate, and transform our young people and our people, period, in our community. This is a call to action. Thank you, Doc.
www.makingblackpages.com